It's your boy J Mace live on the Time Machine on WUAG 103.1 FM. And right now, I have the man himself, the founder and creator of NJS4E.com, Mr. Andrew Knyte. What is going on, my man?
How you doing? Are we live?
Yes, we are live on the air right now.
Oh, my God. That means Stevie Swing in London is on the computer right now. What's up, Stevie?
Yeah, what up, Stevie? Holding it down on the other side of the pond. My partner in crime, my ace, my mellow, sipping on tea and eating them crumpets. You know what I mean? All right, so how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. It's Friday. It's Good Friday, actually. So
it's Good Friday.
For weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it's warm in Chicago right now. It's actually in the 80s, which is
wow.
Nice and warm around this time of year.
Yeah, I can't blame it. I'm rocking a pair of shorts myself. You know what I mean? I didn't come to the station all dressed up. I decided to dress down a little bit with my old school Hurricane football shirt and my little jogging shorts. So, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely like an honor to me being interviewing you right now because like I've been knowing you for like what 4 years or so.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, with
like
the site.
2002.
Yeah, and it's crazy like what both of us are doing now. You know what I mean?
The feeling is music. I mean, you've done a lot. You know, just in the last year even, and it's just been really fun to watch you keep hitting milestone after milestone. And I know we're still in the beginning, so this is great, and I'm glad to be talking to you live on the radio and in cyberspace. So holla, what's up?
All right, let's go ahead and get this interview underway.
All right.
All right. How did the concept for NJS4E come about?
Well, I think to give you guys a short version, I had a radio show when I was going to school at UC Santa Barbara, and after the radio show got over, around the same time, there were a few websites that were up. There was a New Edition site by a guy named Ken12. There was another one by Lizzo13. And I remember going to those sites and just, finding out all the latest stuff. And my whole thing was like, well, let's take that to the next level. Let's not only cover one act, let's cover all the acts that were, from that era. And that's kind of how I got the idea to start New Jack Swing Forever. And the rest, as they say, is
history
continuing to happen.
Yeah, so it was basically like a smorgasbord of those sites that you saw, and you're like, hey, instead of talking about one thing, let's go ahead and combine and talk about the whole thing.
And there was another site that came close to that, and it was called The New Style, and it was a flight time website, and they actually, did a lot of stuff on all the artists that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis did, so I want to give props to that one as well. But, yeah, it was a radio show, and then those other sites that I was a fan of inspired me to do one that would just cover as many artists as possible, hence, the whole New Jack era. Okay,
what is New Jack Swing?
New Jack Swing. Well, first of all, we all know, or those who do not know, the term was coined by Barry Michael Cooper, a journalist from the Village Voice. Now, we actually had the honor of interviewing Barry Michael Cooper, and part 2 of that interview is actually forthcoming. But New Jack Swing is basically, after I talked to him, well, let me get to the music first. Of course, it's the merging of hip-hop and R&B that took place in the late 80s. But after talking to Barry, I think what I'd really call it is R&B meets Harlem hip-hop. Mm-hmm. Because there's really 2 kinds of hip-hop. There's the Queens hip-hop and the Harlem hip-hop out of New York. And the Queens hip-hop is when you think of like LL Cool J, Beastie Boys, basically Def Jam records. Heavy D was trying to get signed to Def Jam. They wouldn't take him because they didn't like his style. He was too clean. He was too flossy. He was too clean. So they founded Uptown Records. That was the Harlem hip-hop. And then, Teddy was the producer, and the rest is history. They married R&B to it, and that was New Jack Swing. So I call it R&B plus Harlem hip-hop.
Nice little summary right there about what it is. And who were some of the artists, and what were some of the songs that embodied New Jack Swing?
Well, I mean, we can't, not to cut you off, we can't discuss New Jack Swing without talking about, the first 2 albums, that Make It Last Forever, Keith Sweat, which had, collaborations with Albie Shore, Teddy Riley, and Keith Sweat himself. And then, of course, the first Guy album in 1988. So Guy, Keith Sweat, Albie Shore, I think really kind of led the way. I don't want to forget anybody. I definitely got Throw Heavy D in there because he was repping for the hip-hop. I think New Edition caught the bug. MCA Records, Jarrell Busby, the guy over there, was like, you know what, make sure that you make that New Edition record have some New Jack Swing into it. They said go back in the studio and then redo it a little bit. And Vogue a little later on. Bobby Brown, come on. Bobby Brown, I think, crossed it over and made it major. But there were so many acts, and I got to warn you, a lot of my perspective is going to be from the U.S. take on it. But I would say between 87 and 88, those are a lot of the acts that kind of made it happen.
Right, and it also should be known, too, that it was so powerful that it had other pop artists getting on board and adopting the New Jack Swing sound to their music, like Jane Child, Boy George, New Kids on the Block, Samantha Fox, you know what I mean?
The Party. I mean, everybody. I mean, it was definitely the next big thing, and it was the thing. I mean, I would say even Madonna, on that a Prayer album, had some, urbanness to it. Paula Abdul was basically a pop artist with a New Jack flair.
Pre-American Idol Paula Abdul, by the way.
Pre-American Idol. A lot of people don't even remember that. It's crazy. Her career now is longer than her old career, but Paula Abdul she was a thing for the minute. I mean, I think she gave Janet Jackson a run for the money for a minute, but then she went over to Virgin Records and killed all that noise. Right. But yeah, New Jack Swing definitely was the music, and you had people like even Al Green, wink, wink. Al Green did a New Jack Swing song, and George Clinton everybody was getting that. Quincy Jones, the man who produced the biggest album of all time, his Back on the Block album was heavily New Jack influenced. So this music, it was a movement, and this movement is resurging to this day.
Right. What was R&B and pop music like before New Jack Swing?
Now, I was not that old. I was actually a teenager while it happened, so I was just getting into music probably around 85, 86, 87. And around that time, I would say the Minneapolis sound was really making it happen, i.e. Ready for the World, which already had a little bit of New Jack into it. But basically, music was just, your Madonna, your Michael, your Prince. But then you also had, your R&B that was more kind of plush and
adults
sophisticated.
Only.
Yeah, it was adult. It was Anita Baker and Luther. There wasn't really. And
Billy Ocean.
You wanted hip hop. You basically was everything. There was not as much of a fusion. Everything was a little bit more separated. Right. And it was getting kind of old. And I think people were ready for something new.
Yeah, and also should be known too, while Teddy Riley coined New Jack Swing and merged hip hop and R&B together, Full Force, I think they were the first ones to actually do it with Alice and Unselfish Love and Temporary Love Thing.
I would definitely agree with that. But then when you think about it, if you go back to even 1983's Candy Girl, they're definitely singing and rapping on the same album. You know what I mean? So it's I think that all throughout the early 80s there was experiments going on. But I would wholeheartedly agree with you that if Teddy was, the kind of the guy who really made it take off, I would call Full Force progenitors, if you will. They definitely were mining that territory before Teddy struck gold.
Right. What did you think led to New Jack Swing's backlash around 92, 93?
Well, I think, for me, the backlash really happened, again, I would say in the United States, because New Jack really didn't take a foothold, I think, outside of the U.S. probably until the summer of 92, from what I understand. But by 92, it was kind of ending, and I think the reason why was a lot of reasons, but I'll put it on two. A, it was getting super, super commercial. It wasn't necessarily as creative anymore. There were a lot of the same sounding things going on. I think the record companies figured it out and started mass producing it, so it was just every day there was somebody new coming out with not a whole lot of talent, but just trying to live off the sound. And then I'd actually give a lot of it to Nirvana and the whole grunge movement, because that was the new thing. And because New Jack Swing in the States had such support from everybody, the mainstream, the suburbs. Once the suburbs had something else to listen to, it was like the rug was pulled out from under New Jack Swing. And the only ones who survived were the ones who were quote-unquote urban enough to hang with, the hardcore. So you had your Mary J's, your Jodeci's, and basically the hip-hop and soul took more of an element into it. People stopped dancing so much, and it just became that the new Harlem hip-hop meets R&B, and that was hip-hop soul.